How long did you think it would be before Al Gore or somebody in the environmentalist wacko movement would take the occasion of this extraordinary winter weather to say, see, I told you, global warming, climate change? Well, it has happened. Al Gore has posted this on his blog, Al's Journal. Last week on his show, Bill O'Reilly asked, why has southern New York turned into the tundra? And then said he had a call into me. Well, I appreciate the question. As it turns out, the scientific community has been addressing this particular question for some time now. And they say that increased heavy snowfalls are completely consistent with what they have been predicting as a consequence of man-made global warming. In fact, scientists have been warning for at least 20 years that global warming could make snowstorms more severe. Snow has two simple ingredients, cold and moisture. Warmer air collects moisture like a sponge until it hits a patch of cold air. When temperatures dip below freezing, a lot of that moisture creates a lot of snow. A rise in global temperature can create all sorts of havoc, ranging from hotter, dry spells to colder winters, along with increasingly violent storms, flooding, forest fires, loss of endangered species. This is what Al Gore has posted. The problem is nobody believes it anymore. You're not going to convince anybody driving around Chicago or stranded. I don't know if you are aware. I am, because we are hosting a couple of events this weekend in Dallas for clients. That city, DFW, shut down yesterday for a while, and they're still playing catch-up, getting people in there. You couldn't get there from late yesterday afternoon through last night from Houston. You could get there from New York, but not too many other places. And now there's a new storm in South. I mean, they've got wind chills below zero. The two teams have had to move their practice sites indoors because of all this. Now, by the weekend, when it gets there, 40s and 50s for the actual Super Bowl weekend, but this is all playing havoc. You're not going to convince those people they're in the middle of global warming. And we are fortunate to have been able to help expose the hoax of all of this. It's a pure, unadulterated hoax. Even we had a soundbite last week or earlier this week, and I didn't have a chance to get to it. One of the founders of Greenpeace, Patrick is his first name. I can't remember his last name, but he admitted that the whole environmental movement is solely oriented toward anti-capitalism. Just exactly as I've always said. The militant environmental movement since the early 90s is simply the new repository for displaced communists after the Berlin Wall fell and the Soviet Union went bye-bye. Anti-capitalist. That's all they are. Just like the feminists. It's another anti-capitalist movement. It's pro-socialist, pro-Marxist, pro-big government. That's all they are. And now here you've got Gore, who, I mean, he's not a scientist quoting all these people. For a guy who pretends to be so scientific, you'll notice what I read to you here from his blog, he seldom, if ever, backs up his assertions with actual documentation. This quote, that long quote that Gore posted above that I just read, is from a famous scientist and climate expert. And that is the columnist Clarence Page. And I kid you not, it is Clarence Page who wrote, in fact, scientists have been warning for at least 2 decades that global warming would make snowstorms more severe. Snow has 2 simple ingredients, cold and moisture. Warmer air collects moisture like a sponge until it hits a patch of cold air. When temperatures dip below freezing, a lot of moisture creates a lot of snow. Clarence Page wrote that. Gore is citing it here as scientific community evidence. Clarence Page, who writes, as the Chicago newspaper syndicates him, but we know that Clarence Page isn't a scientist. He's not even a pretend climate change scientist. He's just a liberal pundit. So I would like to see some of these authoritative predictions from scientists from 20 years ago that supposedly claim that man-made global... I don't want to hear from UN hacks. I don't want to hear... I want to hear from actual scientists. I would like to hear, for example, from our own climate expert, Dr. Roy Spencer. Dr. Spencer, I ask you now, 20 years ago, did any reputable climate scientist forecast massive warming leading to record snowfalls 20 years ago, exactly as we're seeing today, in the manner in which Clarence Page describes it here, sponges and the like? A rise in global temperature can create all sorts of havoc. Hotter, dry spells. We haven't had those. Colder winters. Rise in global temperature equals colder winters. People used to buy this till we exposed it. But now the greatest weapon we have is all of this extraordinary weather. I don't care what people think. They know this isn't global warming. Now, they may be buying into climate change if they really are invested in this. But if they do that, even they must know that the terminology here is being changed. Now, let's go back. We're going to go back 11 years. This is from the Climate Research Unit, University of East Anglia, the Hadley bunch, the people who were at the forefront of the hoax. We were warned by the Climate Research Unit at the University of East Anglia as recently as March of 2000 that snow would soon be a thing of the past. And now I mention this because these were people who were at the forefront of the hoax, at the forefront of the idea that we were destroying the climate with man-made greenhouse gases, emissions, driving our SUVs, you name it, you know what it is, burning coal for fuel. We were destroying the planet. Now, Gore in this post says, oh yeah, scientists 20 years ago warned us of all these massive snowfalls as the world's climate got warmer. But March 20th of 2000, according to Dr. David Viner, a senior research scientist at the Climate Research Unit, University of East Anglia, within a few years, winter snowfall will become a very rare and exciting event. Children just aren't going to know what snow is. But you see, Al Gore's not a scientist. He is a propagandist. He has a considerable financial stake in the success of his own propaganda, and that's what this is about. I hate to say it, but this is about Al Gore enriching himself on a hoax. Propaganda. So you can't expect him to bother too much about inconvenient details. While he wants to tell us scientists are warning us 20 years ago that the snows are going to get even worse like we have never seen before. 10 years ago, the experts at Hadley were telling us snow would become so rare that it would be something children will not even recognize. They wouldn't even know what it is. March of 2000.